This is Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We're on our road show. We're in Santa Cruz County in Watsonville today. We are joined by John Leopold. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors in Santa Cruz County. He is the vice chair of that board. And about 50 years ago, there was a significant event in Santa Cruz County, and we are celebrating that event. Here's a poster commemorating the first acid test.
Sure.
Sir, I'm talking to a member of the Board of Supervisors about the first acid test, but it is an historic event, and I do want to take us back and talk about it.
Yeah, well, so 50 years ago in SoCal.
Right, which is a community not far from here.
Yeah, it's an unincorporated community in Santa Cruz County. You had Ken Kesey, famous author, had written 2 great American novels. Neal Cassady, who was the muse of the Beat generation.
Sure.
Allen Ginsberg, who's one of the best-known poets of the 20th century. And 4 members of the Grateful Dead, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame members.
Heard of them.
All here performing and taking place in this cultural event that we call Acid Test, where they took LSD and played music.
But they and several other people with them. I mean, it was kind of a public display of dropping acid.
It was advertised. It was legal. LSD was legal in the United States in November 1965.
Right.
So they weren't doing anything wrong.
Right.
And then they went ahead and they did a series of acid tests in San Francisco, Los Angeles, all over the state that really changed the nature of the rock and roll experience and the way in which people interacted with the music.
Right.
And it really changed the San Francisco music scene quite a bit.
And what about this county, though? How did the fact that SoCal was really the birthplace of the acid test, how has that informed who SoCal is? And
well, I mean, I think Santa Cruz County is still known as a fairly bohemian community.
Yes.
So those roots are here. And it's interesting that, the Grateful Dead archive, all their business records and possessions have a place at the UC Santa Cruz Library. There's a permanent exhibition there. And they have a Grateful Dead archivist as part of the university staff. The Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, MAPS, is located here in Santa Cruz. It's
fantastic.
A national group that studies psychedelics. And then you have all these great local authors who are part of that wellspring that happened in November '65.
So you did hold a couple of events commemorating the moment. Were people pleased to see the commemoration? Was there some pushback?
There was no pushback. It was on the cover of the weekly.
Sure.
There was an event at Bookshop Santa Cruz, one of the pranksters.
Sure.
Mary Pranksters was a reporter here for many years. Over 300 people showed up, and then we did an event the next night at a music hall with a band, and there was the largest crowd they ever had. They had to stop selling tickets at 600 people. We had 8 of the surviving pranksters come back here, and we had Neal Cassady's daughter, who lives here in Santa Cruz County, and we celebrated not only this 50th anniversary, we're placing a historic marker at the site.
Tell us about this.
And there's also a bus stop that's right next door to where we're placing the historic marker. So we're turning that into a museum display that's going to feature the Warlocks becoming the Grateful Dead, the Hip Pocket Bookstore, and Neal Cassady.
So when all those people tried to get to SoCal, some of them probably hit traffic. And you want to change that because Santa Cruz County deserves better roads. The challenge is that there's not a lot of money out there for roads. And we know, for example, that just local city and county roads would need $78 billion to get up to snuff. Now, Santa Cruz County is but a part of that, but you're looking to talk to your voters about this.
Yeah, in the county, we have about 600 miles of roads, which is enough to drive from here to Oregon if you lay them end to end. We have about a $100 million backlog of needs. But the primary source of funding we get is state and federal dollars.
Right.
The state went through a period of the first 10 years of the decade taking away money.
Sure. And when you think about much of the funding that flows from the state to the counties for transportation, it comes through the gas tax.
Exactly.
And the problem with the gas tax, if I may say, you know this better than I, with inflation, with electric vehicles, with hybrid vehicles, with no increase in 20 years, the gas tax dollars aren't going far enough.
Yeah, well, in fact, several years back, they did something called a gas tax swap, which was capped how much money we could get.
Right.
And they said, well, at least you'll get that same amount with the expectation that gas prices would always continue to go up. As it turns out, gas prices have gone
Right,
down.
right. I
So
forgot
now
that
we
too,
actually
right.
get less gas tax money. This year we're getting about $1.5 million less from our for state funding just for the county roads. That doesn't include the city roads. So we looked around and we realized that the state's not going to bail us out. It took the federal government 10 years to come up with a federal transportation bill.
But let's talk about the state for a second, because I think it's fair to say that the state won't bail out the cities and counties, but we still are in a special session with regard to transportation. Governor Brown is very fixated on this question. We know state roads needs about $59 billion, so there's a lot of money out there. And there's discussion about increasing the gas tax, maybe looking at a mileage fee, looking at toll roads, congestion pricing, lots of possible remedies out there. Are you bullish on the possibilities?
Well, I mean, when they said they were going to have a special session this summer, we were all very excited to think that they were actually going to deal with this because it seems like every 5 or 10 years they get around to talking about this.
Right.
And we were very disappointed that they went through the entire month of August without coming up with really no bills.
Right.
So now they're going to try to do it again. The governor's trying to get engaged. He wasn't very engaged in August. But it's an election year, and you need 2/3 majority, and it's unclear whether there's a 2/3 majority to support things that we think are pretty simple. We think that the way fees on trucks should be going to local roads.
Those got pulled back and put into the general fund, I believe.
General fund to help pay debt that the state had earned. We think that there should be some indexing of the gas tax. So, you can't go 20 years. The costs don't stay the same, so the resources shouldn't stay the same.
You mentioned 2/3. You're going to turn to your voters, and hopefully, at least in your eyes, 2/3 of them will say yes to a self-help measure, which is a 1/4-cent sales tax increase in this county. Tell me about it, sir.
Well, we're looking really at half-cent
sales tax. Oh, it's half cents. I misspoke.
That would generate about $450 million over 30 years. And our Transportation Commission has been working on how we look at all modes of transportation. People in Santa Cruz get around in their car, their bike, they walk, and they take bus. And so we have a unique opportunity after doing a lot of work on our commission. The largest percentage that we're targeting would go to our local roads. We would do auxiliary lanes on the highway to help address congestion. We would help support our bus system, which is facing also serious threats of funding. We purchased a rail line, a 32-mile rail line that goes from Watsonville to Davenport, and we want to both upgrade the line and put a trail next to it, so you could bike through the entire county.
But as I understand it, when I think about Santa Cruz, a fairly progressive county, 10, 11 years ago, you asked your voters for an increase in sales tax. And in this progressive county, they said no in a very big way.
Yes, well, the measure 11 years ago was very different because virtually all the money went to the highway.
I see.
And that is not popular with all segments of the Santa Cruz population, even though some parts of the population, it's the most important thing.
Right.
But the Transportation Commission, this is before I got involved. In fact, most of the Transportation Commission wasn't even wasn't there. But their own pollster said the numbers didn't look good, and it got 43% at the ballot when it needed 2/3.
So are you feeling fairly confident that come November 2016, Santa Cruz County will say yes to this increase in sales tax?
Well, I'm feeling good about it. The Transportation Commission has done a transportation plan that looks at all modes of transportation.
Right.
We've been involved in a 2-year public education and outreach effort. We've tried to address all transportation needs, and the Chamber of Commerce did a poll and found that there was over 70% support.
We'll come back and talk to you about it. He is John Leopold, Vice Chair of the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors. I'm Brad Pomerance in Santa Cruz, Charter Local Edition.